On the podcast today, we will dissect chapter 43 of the Tao Te Ching, which makes up the 43rd episode of the 81 meditations on the Tao Te Ching. And as usual, Guyang will read Jia Fu Feng and Jane English's translation, and I will read Derek Lin's translation.
The softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words and working without doing are understood by very few.
The softest things of the world override the hardest things of the world. That which has no substance enters into that which has no openings. From this I know the benefits of unattached actions. The teaching without words, the benefits of actions without attachment are rarely matched in the world. In this chapter, Lao Tzu returns to the power of softness and also Wu Wei, but in a very poetic way, probably the most poetic throughout the entire Tao Te Ching.
This chapter reminds me of that famous Bruce Lee verse, what he said, "Be like water, my friend."
Yeah, that's right.
And again, the reason why he said that is because of that the power of water. The water has that power.
Yeah.
Again, the softness, the softest source of nature, and yet the strongest.
Yeah.
Again, we know that when we walk on the jungle in the forest or something, you find a stream of a river or a waterfall or something like that. And over many, many, many years, the water keeps flowing through, and then how it damages the rocks. And the reason why the little rocks on the bottom of the river has its own that soft shape is because of the water, thousands of years of flowing down the stream, right? Yeah. So that is the power of the water. So the water analogy works perfectly. I mean, here the softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe, right? The hardest thing being by rocks, but they always get shaped by movement of water.
Yes, and the irony is that water is the source of life. Isn't it ironic that because without water there is no life? Plants don't grow, humans don't exist, animals die. This is the nature of it.
Yeah.
The softest element within nature is the essence of nature itself.
That's right.
And, we've used the humility paradox a lot where, water seeks the lowest places, but paradoxically is the most powerful force in nature. And that again, humility is that softness, right? Having that humility that can overcome and enter the hearts of even the most hardened people.
Right.
And it can change them through that humility. Not even through you intentionally doing so either, right? Water itself, when you drink water, you're not intentionally drinking it and saying, you do your job. You don't have to do anything. It just does its job.
That's right.
Your existence is nourished. You're hydrated. Everything's good, right?
Yes. And also water has no shape, right? In a sense that when it's in a certain temperature, it has that fluid, liquid form.
Yes.
And when the temperature goes high, then it becomes like mist, right? So it looks like it's not there, but actually it's there. It becomes invisible, but it is there in the air, right? And when the temperature goes really, really low, then it becomes hard, like solid. So it has no shape. It changes by environment or by circumstance. And again, that is why probably what Bruce Lee said, be like water, my friend.
Yeah.
So you should be able to change shape, or a better way to say is maybe become shapeless, right? So that easily you can adapt to the situations by circumstance or the environment.
That's right. Yeah, Bruce is talking about exactly what you're saying. Like the mind has no shape, right? The mind nature is empty, spontaneous, and free. That's its inherent nature. But its habit is to fix itself. It's trying to fix itself in a certain reality. Because as we become conditioned, we are uncertain in the world.
It's from fear.
From fear. Yeah, it's not from love. It's from fear. And so we try to fix our mind in a certain way when it's naturally empty, spontaneous, and free. It's shapeless, right? And so Bruce was saying, and Lao Tzu saying here, if we remain shapeless ourselves, then we can just move through life like a feather. We're not stuck to any sort of belief or any part of our life or perspective, or we are practicing ultimately wu wei, where we're doing non-doing, where we're in action, but there's no one fixed within ourselves. You know, to use a Vedantic terminology, there's no jiva, there's no persona, no ego that's there, because we're coming from that place. So when you're always coming from the shapeless place, even if you've accumulated a jiva, and we all do from birth, it begins to thin out because your perspective is always open, or your mind is always open. And so you're moving through life like just that drifting feather, and you can encounter situations immediately and appropriately without being stuck, right? It's only the one who has shape that presses up against other shapes.
And you have strong opinion about something, you have a strong agenda, right?
Yes.
And you want to force upon people who think differently.
Yep.
And you have to change the way they think to accord the way you think, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's with the strong, very firm shape. You have very strong shape.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. Again, in that way, you cannot navigate life, navigate the world effortlessly.
No, that's right. That's why a lot of Taoist sages aren't politically correct, because they don't follow the moral flavors of the time, right? And even I've had people say to me before, like, what do you think about this? And I say, look, I'm completely indifferent to it because I don't know anything about it, and I don't care one way or the other.
Yes.
And they are like, but you have to have an opinion. And it's like, no, I don't. Like, why does being indifferent to it threaten you?
Right.
Like, because it's got nothing to do with me. Like, you being uncomfortable is none of my business. Because I'm just saying, I'm just indifferent to the situation. It's not any of my concern.
It's kind of funny that people think that's strange of somebody not having opinion.
Yeah.
Not even themselves,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, yeah.
But again, when you have a really firm shape, meaning you have a strong stance of certain things, a strong opinion about certain things, you're always going to meet the resistance, right? And that resistance always come back to you in a way that you get confused and you will have an even stronger opinion about something, right? But in that sense, life becomes more difficult, actually, because there's more resistance, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
But when you become shapeless, actually, it's easy to navigate through things. You can easily look at things in different way, in different perspective, right? Because, you have no shape.
Yeah, you have no shape. You've left your ego at the door.
Yes.
I've been in surroundings where before you go to see the teacher, there's a sign saying, leave your ego at the door. And then when you're inside, the people find it hard to have left their ego at the door.
Yeah.
And the teacher will say, hey, didn't you read the sign out the front?
Yeah, that's right.
But we hold steadfast to this conditioning we have.
Yes.
And we almost feel, for whatever reason, homeless without it. Where your true home, as Ajahn Chah would put it, the great Thai Buddhist master, is this empty, spontaneous and free mind. That's actually your real home, not this what you've built. You know, it's like saying, this house we are in is my home. And you could say, okay, but what is it built upon? Well, the earth. Well, that's your real home. You're just not seeing it naturally.
Right.
Your house is even built of the elements of earth.
When people trying to defend certain things, that means people have very strong opinion of themselves, the firm idea of who they think they are, like strong idea of identity, right? But when you try to defend it, when you easily get offended by what other people say about how you think or how you think you yourselves are, that means that you are acting out of a certain level of defensive position. And to me, that is to show that how their identity is not authentic or genuine. That identity is built upon certain social ideas or concept, or like a false values based on material and or like a perception of others, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's how you build a false idea of identity, and that you think that is it, and you get attached to it. So you get easily triggered by certain things. And whole thing is the clear evidence that it's not true self. If you were completely comfortable within your own skin and you are residing in your own true nature, why would other people say to you, bother you really?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you are firm with the way you are. You are comfortable with the way you are, so that you don't feel offended.
No.
Right? Because you just being you're just being your true nature, and you reside in it, and that's most comfortable place to be, and that's most secure place to be, so that there is nothing to fear for, and there's nothing to defend, so that you don't get offended by anything.
Exactly. Yeah. How could you defend something that's empty, spontaneous, and free?
Yeah.
Your nature is already liberated. So what is there to defend? You could only be defending an outer shell of yourself. That doesn't really exist.
That's right.
But you want to hold on to this outer shell. Like, it's like the jar analogy in the Avadutta Gita, right? Like, the air within the jar is the same as the air outside the jar.
Yes.
Smash the jar.
Yeah, that's it.
Stop clinging to the jar. But that's what we do. We cling to the jar because we don't know any different. Because we think, well, how will anything get done from there? And it's not that action ceases, as we've been talking about. With Wu Wei, action continues, but it's in the same way that water does its work within your body.
That's right.
You don't need to tell the water to do its work within your body. You are essentially an aspect of the universe expressing itself, but you think you're this subjective person.
That's right.
Hey, I'm doing all this stuff. Look how cool I am. No, your home is the ultimate reality, and it's expressing itself through you. You've just got deluded in thinking that you're the reason that you've done all this. You as the jar. But
As
you're
a
not,
jar,
yeah,
the shell.
Yeah, the shell, yeah, but you're not that. It's the air that's within that and outside of that is doing everything.
So again, like here, that's what it says, that without substance can enter where there is no room. Without substance here is exactly what that is. That is without substance, without having an idea of jiva, idea of ego or individual, is what it means by here. Without substance, like not in a sense that like. Well, we would think that substance is important, having substance, right? Like, so it's got to be substantial. But in this case, having substantial is actually more damaging.
Yes.
More damaging to the order of universe, basically.
Exactly.
So again, just like in Vedanta, the Brahman itself has no substance, and yet the most ultimate, the primal source of the universe, right? And that enters where there is no room. The Brahman is everywhere.
Exactly.
And that Brahman is us as Atman, is within us, and then no substance, having no ego, no jiva, there is no jiva. Again, action continues on, like you said, but the action of the doer is different. There is no more doer per se. So it's doing its thing from its truest sense, the most fundamental place that is without substance.
Exactly. And that without substance, as you were talking about in regards to Atman and Brahman, if we look at the jar analogy again, the Atman is the contained Brahman within the jar. But it's the same as, that's the Atman is Brahman, right?
Right.
So within our body, our psychosomatic organism, our body and mind, the Atman is contained in here. But we believe we're the equipment, the body, and we believe we're this jiva, which are the jar, right? This is the physical and mental plane of consciousness, not the spiritual plane. And so we believe we're this shell, and then there's a seemingly disconnect between our true nature and the ultimate nature. But there's not. You just have to break the shell and realize that you're the ultimate reality. It's substanceless, right? Like, so if we look at it from the scientific aspect of Vedanta, you are the undifferentiated consciousness.
Yes.
That air that's within the jar and without the jar is the undifferentiated consciousness. The jar is a differentiated consciousness. It's the subjective viewpoint.
Yes.
Hey, look at my equipment, body, mind. Look at this equipment of consciousness that I am. It's like, that's like a temporary jar. You put the jars out in the recycling bin, and you never see them again, they're gone.
That's right.
And when you die, it goes into the recycling bin of the earth or into the air if you get cremated, and that's it. It's all done. Did you realize what you truly were within that time the jar's existence was alive? Or were you focused just on polishing the jar so it looks
make
good?
It look good.
Yeah. Were you worried about these certain things?
And I think while we are in a shape of jar, make sure you keep the lid open so that we know that air outside and inside are the same.
You need a bit of space there, yeah. You have to keep some space.
We gotta make sure that the lid open, not closed up.
Exactly. But that's a good point, because when we talk about the formlessness and that, and as I alluded to earlier, is that water formlessness can enter solid objects, right? And it has the ability then to change them. So softness can change hardness.
Yes.
That's the thing. Can hardness change softness? Okay, you can throw a rock into a water, but what happens is softness just absorbs the rock, right?
That's right.
And the rock just remains, as you were saying earlier, that just remains at the bottom and it just gets worn out. And
temporarily looks like did something.
Yeah.
But in long term,
nothing.
Yeah.
But if you look long term on a rock, with the water wearing over it, I mean, it can't revert back to its original nature.
That's right.
And so that, as you were saying, leaving the lid open, like that's formlessness and softness can enter into the hardest places and then change things. And this is why Lao Tzu all throughout the Tao Te Ching emphasizes humility, because if you have humility and innocence as well, it tends to change people, right? So the innocence of other people, for example, can change you, right? Like you can go to certain cultures that are far more innocent than, say, some modern Western cultures, and that will leave an indelible mark in your mind, and you'll walk away with that innocence. Even when we meet our spouse or someone you're attracted to, usually it's the innocence of the other person that you're attracted to. If the other person was aggressive and hard and
that's not attractive.
Not attractive at all. So we're usually attracted to that pure innocence within each other. And so it doesn't matter how hard a person is or how rigid their beliefs. If you follow what Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching, and in following this, you're returning to your actual nature, it'll change the hardest object that there is, or the hardest people.
And that also shows that the enduring aspect of innocence of water, the softness, right?
Yep.
So the softness and innocence actually naturally brings an enduring character of the element or of a person, right?
Yep.
So if you are that coming from the soft place, you have more like a strength to endure in a certain situation, or just in life in general. And that endurance is also, I think it's a good aspect or character, but it becomes like a rare skill nowadays, because no one wants to endure. They want to have an instant result. Right?
Instant gratification.
Yes.
Not delayed gratification.
No.
They don't understand how beneficial that is.
That's right.
To be in that realm where instant gratification, this and that, is empty in and of itself. I mean, you get things like this, and it's meaningless.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like, and to go back to innocence, like this is why the sages constantly emphasize having a childlike mind. Because once you lose that childlike mind, that sort of innocence of play and everything like this, like wu-wei, actually one of the elements, ways to speak about it is like unassociated play. It's just enjoying life and just dancing with life, right? And I've heard many teachers say before, have you looked at people's eyes in this day and age? Are their eyes soft? See, like that's how you can understand if someone's innocent, right? You look and we all know the look, right? We all know when we look at someone's eyes who they think they know everything. They've lost their innocence and they have this real like you see this a lot in the West. Yeah, aggressive look in their eye. You see this a lot in the West. And unfortunately, you're seeing a lot with these kids these days. Young people who are fighting for everything. They've got this real intense look in their eye. But then if you go to somewhere like Tiruvannamalai in South India, kids of the same age, and they have this pure look.
Yes.
And the irony is if you get those kids from the West and you put them there, it softens their heart because like it's almost embarrassing. Because when you see their eyes, you can tell like, oh man, they're pure at heart. What have I done wrong?
The softness overcomes the hardness there.
Exactly. So that's just a reminder for everyone listening and watching, like have a look at how soft people's eyes are. Are their eyes soft? Or is there that intense look that, hey, I know everything, I even know what's best for you? You know, that's a problem in and of itself, isn't it?
Yeah, so we mentioned about doing without doing.
Yeah.
Doing, yes.
Wu-wei.
Wu-wei, yeah.
That's right.
Non-action.
Yes. Doing without doing. And just like I was mentioning, like when we allow water to do its thing, it does its thing without even having to think about it.
Yes.
And that's kind of what Lao Tzu is mentioning here, right? Like it's unattached actions. So you're just going without any attachment to what you're doing.
Yes.
And even in this translation, Derek's translation, teaching without words.
Teaching without words.
That's another thing, isn't it? Like we were just mentioning with the innocence.
This line, I was reminded of the Ramana Maharishi. Yes, how his existence was teaching itself without words, right?
Yep.
So that's again good example of wu-wei, isn't it?
A beautiful example, yeah. I was thinking actually about that when we were mentioning it.
Yes.
That I was thinking about Ramana, and I was thinking about, we've spent a lot of time at Ramana Ashram and the power that's still there, Okay, Arunachala is there too, and there's an immense energy in the whole town. But just that presence,
yes,
that's still there. And look, Ramana spoke sometimes, right? But the majority of the time he was in silence.
Yes.
And didn't have to actively teach per se, right? His silence was the teaching.
Yes.
I mean, he probably got annoyed. People just started hanging around. Like, what are you all doing here? You know what I mean? Yes. And that's something for us, that's the power of silence, right?
Yes.
That's the power of wu-wei, the power of non-doing.
Again, the power of softness.
Power of softness, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, guys, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time.